Hey, what's going on, everybody? I want to welcome y'all to another episode of the Kind of Poise podcast. I am your host, Everett Stevenson, joined with my other co-host.
I Go ahead.
Oh yeah, thanks, Sam. Hey guys, I'm Malik Foster, another co-host for the Cowboys podcast.
And I am Samantha Adams. I am the third co-host. I don't know if you guys could hear E kind of blanked out like that for a quick second when he said his name. His name is Everett Stevenson. And today, per usual, we have a great topic. Today we have entitled this episode "Till I Do Us Part." Why? Because we are talking about the divorce rate amongst Black people in marriages, particularly as it pertains to women, right? Because women are more commonly the ones that file for divorce. That's across nationalities, but women typically are the ones that go ahead and file for divorce. And so there was an article that was done by, who was it? By
Divorce.com.
divorce.com, I think it was. And it was written back March of this year. And the statistics is interesting. The statistics and the information that they gathered came from the Census Bureau, which you would expect, right? Because they maintain the population index type stuff, and the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I'm not really all too sure why they had something to do with this. We can all theorize and all that other kind of stuff, but they did. And so I'm gonna let E go ahead and dive into the background of what they found.
Yeah, so some of the findings that we've seen within the articles stated that in 2021 there was 2.5 couples per every thousand people, um, and it averaged to about a 48% divorce rate. And then in 2010, there was about 3.6 people who had a divorce out of every thousand people. Um, so one of the other factors that we saw within that was that since 2011 up until 2020, um, the divorce rate has continuously decreased. Around 2020 and 2021 was the first time we saw it actually increase. And as we stated, that was right around that time of COVID. We had a lot of couples that probably were in home, having to be forced, and that just, may have played a factor on a lot of relationships. Um, but prior to that, we always seen that it was a constant, steadily decrease in those numbers. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think was one of the reasons for some of the steady decrease in the numbers until say 2020, and when it for the first time increased into 2021? The last year or two, it's been considered, or excuse me, I think that the data only showed up until 2021 information.
Do you want me to put the data up on the screen on me? You want
If
me to
you
do that?
can, you're not sure.
Yeah, I'll see if I can have it up.
Uh,
Okay, well, while Malik's doing that, my theory is the pandemic played a huge role because prior to 2020, the pandemic really hit right around March 2020. And prior to that, people were out there busy, living their lives, doing what they did. And even though they may have been married, they may not have necessarily had a full understanding of who their partner was or whether or not they liked them until they got trapped in the house for quarantine, right? When everybody had to stay in the house and be in the house, people realized they didn't really like their spouse like that much. And so they broke up.
Mhm.
Also, too, financially, money was flowing a little bit. At first, it wasn't really because it wasn't really sure as to what to do, but there was all kind of benefits, PPEs, stimulus checks, all that kind of stuff to keep the economy afloat. And people had money. Not everybody, because a lot of people got evicted and some more stuff. But people did have money, and so people were more inclined to stick around when they got bread. But when you find out that they realize they did not know their spouse, and so that was one of the reasons I believe for the increase in divorce back in 2020 through 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 2020, 2021, I think yeah, the pandemic played a role. So a lot of people were essentially, the divorce rate was going down, but it ticked up, right? So I guess, it's kind of going back to normal. So 2.3 is kind of low. And I think everybody was just trying to stay together. It was a lot of uncertainty. He, Everybody was unsure what was going to happen, whether the vaccine was going to work, were we going to be able to freely move about, how we used to, would things return to normal, or is this the new normal? So it was a lot of uncertainty around that time period. So I think that played a role in why 2020 was like the lowest in like the past 10 years. But then you see the uptick again. So I think around 3.0, that 2.9 area, I don't know if y'all guys can see, it's kind of small on my screen, but um, I think that's more true to where it would normally be at. Um, so that's what I'm thinking. But E, did you want to get into more of the statistics, or because I know you just asked us that question?
Certainly. Like some of y'all mentioned, I think too, just looking at how some of the things with the economy were prior to prior to the pandemic occurring. I think that's why we saw such solid numbers. You know what I mean? As far as that, it averaged down around that 3 point rate. We know around the time in 2020 is when some of the courts are kind of slowing up and things of that nature. So that, along with COVID, also could play a factor within it. But I think now we see it kind of increasing as well, to that average numbers that it have been, around that 3.3, 3 point whatever we may want to say, for these last 10 years or whatever that we see on this chart. Um, I feel like it'd kind of go to that, and that's what we're going to probably see moving forward when we look at these numbers. Just because, again, some things are leveling out and other things are remaining, a challenge. Inflation is continuously going up. There's things where the interest rates are a lot higher for a lot of things. So there's still a lot of factors that can weigh in heavily on relationships and things. And I think that that's going to also dictate how people move forward within their relationships.
The other thing is too, we're talking about black women, right? So let's just be clear. Like, why do we think that, well, I can't speak for Malik and Everett, but I'm gonna tell you why I think it's the increases amongst black women specifically, the highest one. I think it was at 38% or something. I think Malik can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm about to pull it up so
Yeah.
everybody can see. So
But listen to this, right? I theorize, nobody else has to share it, but I believe it's because the reason for the increase is so high amongst black women is for two things. Black people, number one, black folks as a whole, right? I'm not going to speak about people individually, but as a whole, black people are used to not having, right? And so, especially black women are least likely to get married, right? So, when you're dealing in that type of a position, black women are more inclined to say, I can do bad by myself. And so as a result, they'll bounce if they're not happy. And so I think that also plays a role because black people know how to sustain themselves in any circumstance. So even though they may lose that second income, they may lose that mate, that spouse, that whatever, it doesn't mean that they don't believe that they'll flourish, because black women will flourish in any situation that you give them. It's just a matter of what that struggle looks like, And so I think that with when it pertains to that, I think that a lot of it also has to do with culturally our mindset, how we're raised. Black women are typically raised to be more independent, and so if the needs are not being met, they're more inclined to leave rather than sticking out and trying to figure it out.
yeah, I was gonna say, one of I think one of the reasons why black women's divorce rate is higher is because some of the things that we're going to get into a little later, because they did do a survey where the women who actually file for divorce actually mention why they're filing for divorce, some of the reasons. But personally, I think, particularly with Black women, the reason why they're getting divorced is because they feel, I think it's a lot of societal pressures among also like you said, Sam, like some of their needs aren't being met. They're just not happy. They feel like they deserve more and deserve better. They feel like they can get a better deal
Mm-hmm.
because they see a lot of things on social media, Twitter, Instagram, etc., on TV. A lot of the Black female role models are kind of counterproductive, right? Like they're saying, they can swap men, they can, have babies whenever they want, they can have just do whatever they want. That can work for some people, but that doesn't work for the majority, And I think that's where a lot of Black women are kind of getting confused. Like, okay, just because this small niche group of Black women are happy doing this or successful doing this doesn't mean it's going to work for the average Black woman, right? The majority, that 51% of Black women, right? So I think that's where the issue lies, and that's where the kind of confusion lies, and it's leading to a lot of divorces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, no. I think one thing that you can look at within this within the statement as well, in addition to some of the stuff that y'all were just saying, um, it's not necessarily the influences of social media or maybe some of the musicians and things of that nature. I believe it's also maybe not necessarily having a value or seeing the value, I guess, in the benefits of being in that marriage, right? Like, um, and again, as we stated later, when we get to talking about some of the reasons why some people have listed that they have decided to go that route, we'll see that a lot of times um, there might be situations in which people feel like, they're not necessarily getting the things that they really need to be looking for, and that's been grounds for causing people to feel like they need to leave. I feel like we also know that that's part of the game. I feel like when it comes to dealing with relationships at times, I know everybody have their own little window for how long or how whatever they feel like for whatever, and I think that's up to them to decide when and where they gonna draw their line at and set that boundary. But I think we see more and more people being willing to set those boundaries and move forward along, um, which I think could also be a lot damaging, considering again some of the other factors that we talked about earlier. There's just this increase in a lot of stuff, and if when you're doing it all by yourself, you know what I'm saying, it makes it a lot challenging to try to cover for all of the things that may go on, especially if you happen to want to have a family or have a child or something like that that you need to care for.
yeah. So let me ask you. I know I've seen the article, but people haven't. And I wanted to ask you guys. There's a list of what some of those unmet needs are,
Oh yeah,
and I'm
yeah, it's kind
curious.
of. Let me
Yeah, I
go
was
down
just
to it.
curious about that list and what you guys thought of it. Do you think some things should be added, taken away? What do you think?
Yeah, and this says the reasons why women initiate divorce more often than men. And this was a survey done by Stanford University, um, where it surveyed 2,000 women out of that 69% that filed for divorce of married women when they file, because the other 31% is men um, of the couples. So um, go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there.
No, no, no. I wanted you to answer the question. You're going to keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you're saying of the list, what do I think needs to be added or subtracted?
Yeah,
Is that your question?
yeah.
For women, um, I think this kind of covers it.
How about we read the
Well,
last?
actually, I would add financial.
How about we read the?
I guess it could go. I guess it could fall under better support system, but
Mhm.
I think they should just say, more like, I guess better support system kind of covers it, because you could think like financial stability, bad with money or good with money, like finances should be on here. Um,
That also can incorporate
but I
emotional
think better
support.
support system. But yeah, better support system could be emotional support as well, like you say. E. So it's like it's kind of ambiguous. So I think just being clear that, like, they're about that paper, which is fine. I respect that. It should be on there, because I mean that's a valid reason why women get married to some men or get divorced. I mean, we've seen it.
It's actually one of the primary reasons.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Right.
It should
Yeah.
be on there. I think they were just trying to not
And
look
that may,
bad. And
or that also could be unmet needs. You know what I'm saying? I
right,
had an
right. It could fall
expectation
under
that
that.
things could have, you know what I'm saying, being X, Y, Z, that we would have a certain quality of life. I thought
Yeah.
that you was gonna grow. I thought that we would eventually move forward. Anyhow, another thing that I also wanted to add on to here that I didn't see would be communication. And I think that's kind of funny that women have made this list, but didn't add that in there. I guess is because there may be a belief that there's effective communication occurring, even though sometimes it may not be. So that would be something that I think needs to be on that list. Maybe I would say effective communication, not necessarily because people probably communicate, but are they able to do it in a manner in which both people feel good about, both people feel heard, both people feel respected. They can kind of go back and forth in a civil tone. That's I think that's a major factor to look for too.
So let me back up for a second, and I'm going to read what's actually on the list in this article.
Mhm.
And what's on the list is unmet needs, deficient life, work balance. I'm sorry, unmet needs, a deficient work-life balance, husband's unfaithfulness, alcohol and addiction, physical and emotional violence, better support systems, and fewer regrets. So fewer regrets is interesting because it's like, I mean, I know I don't have regrets, but people definitely walk through life with them. And so,
Yeah, I definitely think fewer regrets was interesting to see on there. Like, what you mean? Like,
right.
you breaking up
Actually, go
because
with
you
it.
have
What are you
fewer
talking about?
regrets?
Fewer regrets.
Like, what does that even
Regrets is
mean?
a
I have
thing.
Fewer regrets is
I
a
have
kind of
fewer
a
regrets.
jerk move. Like, it would be a man jerk move, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, I have fewer regrets if I'm not with you. Like, come on. At least that's how I
Okay,
interpret it.
okay,
Maybe I'm
okay.
interpreting it
That's what
wrong.
that means. Yeah, like I ain't gonna regret as much if I'm staying with you.
Yeah, that's what
Regret.
I'm getting from it, bro.
I get away from you. I don't
Like,
regret it as much. I regret
right,
staying. I regret
right.
doing this. I regret getting that. Okay, fewer regrets.
Yeah.
Jeez.
As opposed to more, basically what it comes to my mind is that, okay, if I'm without you, I have less regrets. Like what's the point of you being here? Like, you're not doing anything beneficial to my life. You're not adding to it. So I feel like, maybe those women feel like that person's a weight. So it kind of goes hand in hand with unmet needs. But instead
Yeah.
of a need, it's a drag. Like, yeah, this person like meeting my needs, but they're also dragging me down. Like, maybe they're
Yeah.
meeting their emotionally and physical needs, but like maybe financial needs they're not meeting. So it's like draining them, in another way. So I don't know. It can kind of go deeper, I think.
So here's the thing: when it's talking about regrets, I actually interpret that slightly differently from you guys. I think it means more about the regrets people had prior to getting in the relationship and allowing those regrets to impact how they treat the current person that they're with.
Mm. So they're
You know,
hot girl summer days. They still want to live those things.
no, that's not what I mean. I mean more so like when the man is out there trying to sow his royal oats. You know
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
saying? And he's feeling like, oh, maybe there's a lady out there that got away, like the one that got away, and he regrets that letting that lady get away. Meanwhile, he's married to a whole nother person. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so she can sense that, she feels that, maybe they talked about it. It's going to be different strokes for different folks, but that, I think, is that's how I interpreted it. I could be wrong, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Also regrets as it relates to like whether or not you didn't take an opportunity. Because think about it. Let's say a man gets an offer for a really good job someplace away from where they live, and she doesn't want to go anywhere, so he stays there to lose the money, and loses money by not, going going on about his business to the other state and her coming with. So he doesn't go, and then he blames her because he regrets it. When in actuality, it was really his choice. And I mean, I get it. You're not trying to separate your family, but it's still his choice. Nobody's preventing him from going anywhere. So I think that right there might also play a part. Something like that when you're talking about regrets.
Yeah, because I mean, I just interpreted it as like the women's like, if I'm without you, I have fewer regrets than if I stay here. If I stay here, I'm
Yeah.
gonna regret that I don't leave. So that's how I looked at it. Um, but I guess it's kind of similar to what you were saying a little bit. Um, yeah. So the next point is the percentage of women who file for divorce across the U.S. I think we have this here.
Yeah, so I got some of that
No.
information. So
Yeah,
there's
I'm just
about
scrolling down to it.
African American women have filed at like a 33%. Got Hispanic women filing at like a 22%. White at a 19%, and Asian women at 11%. And these were the rates as provided by did that part come in here? I think it was just the Stanford test, or was it CDC information?
This was the CDC. CDC has the most updated information in terms of like the statistics. Yeah, I believe it was the CDC. Let me just check the article real quick.
Contacts are bothering me.
Um, uh,
Yeah, but regardless of the fact, those numbers have increased. So I know we normally saw more recently that.
Oh yeah, this is still Stanford. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely seen that this increase since within minority communities, in particular black and brown community, well, traditionally have been considered to be black and brown communities. We've seen an uptick in numbers in women filing for divorces. We see them kind of go down in Caucasians. So what do you guys think that could be attributed to? I know, Sam, you mentioned earlier how when you used to being coming from a certain type of struggle, or not necessarily a struggle, but just saying like that mindset of sometimes, hey, like, if it's gonna be a bad situation, I can do bad by myself. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm not necessarily afraid to have to face things. You know what I'm saying? Without, because I've kind of grown up and been on something like that, as opposed to say somebody who may feel like they come from a more affluent area and they don't want to feel what that's like, so they'll subject themselves to other things.
I agree with that statement, but again, I mentioned that before. And women have a tendency Black women specifically have a tendency to kind of bounce back, so to speak, from bad breakup in a different way from others. A lot of that has to do with, like I said, being in survival mode so much.
Yeah. I was gonna add like, with these numbers here, I mean, man, that's 11 percentage points worse than the next one. Like, that's really bad. Like, so 1 out of 3 Black women that are married are going to get divorced. That's not a good look. I think that's. I mean, you have to look at yourself, or you have to look at your group too. You can't just blame, the counterparts, the men all the time because it's like 1 out of 3. It's like the marriage is gonna fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's pretty high. It's already high in the United States already for everybody, but you don't want to be the worst, right? Because that's going to create broken families. It's going to create a lot of issues in terms of just day-to-day relationships, a lot of animosities between black men and black women, which is already we've already see the problem today. So it's just going to grow even worse, where black men and black women aren't going to want to deal with each other, which would really hurt, you know, the group, right? So I do think this has to do with a few things, right? Social media that plays a big role. Role models. Black women do not have the best role models in terms of how to teach them how to interact with men, um, teach them how to work with men, and just teach them how to interact with men. Right? I'm just speaking, just women to men, not men to women right now. And also, I think media, just media in general, plays a role too, because media always harps on black men being like a boogeyman, a bad person, and I think that seeps into the minds of black women as well. So they look at black men in a negative light as well. Like it's in their subconscious that black men are bad until like proven otherwise. Like he has to be Superman in order to get past that block.
I don't think it's that black men are inherently bad. I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't
that.
think so either, but I
I
just think
think
it's getting to black women, like what they see on TV or what
no.
they
What I was
hear.
gonna say is I think that it actually is a learned behavior. I don't think it's like you know genetic or anything, but I think that what happens is you have black women that grow up in households with other black women, and they're taught to be more independent. And I think a lot of that comes from that, right? Because back in the slavery days, um, black women weren't allowed to be independent. Black men weren't allowed to be independent either. But also, too, when we did a whole podcast on the Willie Lynch letter, y'all make sure y'all go check that out. But anyway, with regards to the Willie Lynch letter, remember it talks about breaking the man in front of the woman so that she teaches her children how to be obedient. You see what I'm saying? And so I think if as it relates to that, if that's the thought process, right, and it's subconsciously ingrained in us as black women, then the goal is to figure out if this is what you want, and if it ain't, leave fast, head for the hills. Because we're not taught to learn how to try to work things through. We're taught how to learn. I'm sorry, we're taught how to just um kind of just keep it moving.
Yeah, just bad conflict resolution skills. That's why I said bad role models, because like, but other black women should
Well,
be teaching other black women how to resolve conflict, how to work out relationships, and not just like, hey, I deserve this, I deserve this just because I exist type of logic. Like, hey, you need to actually work and do something, add
Mhm.
value. You need to work on yourself as well so you can get
Right.
what you want out of this life.
okay,
But
correct.
go ahead, E.
I
Sorry.
think that, yeah, I was gonna say I can agree to that statement. I do think that having proper role models is vital, and I think that in order to do that, you may need to see people who are being able to be successful in some of the things that you're looking at, and I think you judge that success differently. If you can find some people who are able to, walk that line, toe that line, and ask them how they were able to do it, and what they maybe had to endure, or what were some of the things that allowed them to kind of move forward, what helped make those times easier. You know what I'm saying? That would be some of the key. But I think that it's not too many people that even have um, examples around them that allow them to get that, which then leads me to feel like that comes from having to now seek that and find those individuals who do have that, and that's very challenging. Especially if you don't have any examples in your family to kind of seek those information from. But in addition to that, I do think that a lot of it is the thought process again of of wanting more of what you think you see, and that thought process of like, oh, someone else is slowing me down in that situation. If I'm able to kind of get some things done, and I could probably do more if it wasn't for um this person who I might feel like is slowing me down, or da da da. We can get. I think some of that plays into the part too, because we know a lot of the times we see these same individuals, same women, excuse me, that are having an increase in divorce rates, also having an increase in education, also having an increase in income, things of that nature. So I think there's this thought process of like, oh well, I'm doing so well, I don't necessarily need to deal with this. um, but I also think that some of that might come into understanding that like some of the things that you think that you're dealing with may not be um, truly messed up. I know there's some women that really are, dealing with, like you said, the emotional, physical abuse, things of that type of nature. But there's sometimes where it's just like, you just think that the grass is greener on the other side, and then you come out there and realize that, man, you actually have somebody who's willing to work with you. Now you're just dealing with the world with people who don't even want to put in effort. And I don't think that that's necessarily always stated. I think to the point that you made earlier, Malik, that's not given. That game isn't given. I think we see things like 60-year-olds saying, "Okay, I'm ready to settle down." At 60, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to like we were talking about earlier, maybe in your early 20s and had almost 30, 40 years already of life lived with the person, where you kind of working and trying to figure things out, and you now know that you have something and work towards something that no one and nothing should really be able to try to break, because of the connection that y'all have and the bond that
So,
y'all have.
Oh
so
yeah, we do have a comment by the way.
yeah, can you take
Um,
the thing down, please, Malik?
yeah,
It's
yeah, I was gonna stop it. Hold up, sorry,
Mhm.
I got a lot going on.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, Mel D said, "What? How about the fact that women of other races are taught to accept any behavior, just maintain the title of wife? That doesn't mean conflict resolution." Yeah, you're right. That doesn't mean conflict resolution, but it's not that they're taught to accept any behavior, right? But they're taught to how to handle a man, how to treat a man, and just know how a man's mannerisms and demeanor and behavior generally is. I think that other races do better with that than black women generally, but it's not like black women can't do that. It's just that, like Sam said, there's certain situations where, a lot of independency, slavery history, you can look at that. You can also look at, the bad role models. There's a lot of influences on black women that are just negative and bad for them.
So
Um,
let me get in here right quick. I think that there's negative influences on everybody. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, right? But I also think that she's right. It doesn't mean that they necessarily have better conflict resolution skills. It's more so that they're just willing to accept more,
but
right?
I don't
But
think that's part's true though. I don't think just like
I mean,
they're
as a
willing to
black
accept
as a
anything.
black woman, I'm telling you that we are like, yes, there are black women that accept a lot before they move on, but we're taught to not have to accept anything from somebody that you don't want, right? Like it
Mhm.
doesn't make sense to try to force that. Whereas women in different races are so more so taught to buckle down, dig your heels in when it comes to marriage and relationships, and to not, I mean, and to accept more than you would if you were unmarried or if you were of another race. They may not be taught that specifically, but that's kind of how the effect shows its face. So I think that it really comes from the fact that, like I said before, yeah, those are those factors, but I think that oftentimes men don't take them as seriously as they should. And what I mean by that is, how often do you hear a woman repeating herself, repeating herself, repeating herself? And then eventually she's like, forget this, I'm out. And then he starts to try to fix it. And then he's trying to do all the things he has to do to try to get her back. When the truth of the matter is, when she was still there, ready and available, she was waiting for him to do what he had to do, and he never did it. Or maybe she wasn't waiting, right? Maybe he cheated on her or something like that. And she was just more inclined to accept the cheating because she knew the benefits that she was receiving from that relationship. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Somebody who's very, very rich, if they have a lot of money, she's more inclined to stay because he can provide for her and he can provide a comfortable life while he goes out and he cheats, right? Whereas some women aren't going to go for that, and you're gonna see that happen more amongst some nationalities than you are others, and Black people ain't one of them. So I think it more so has to do with that.
But yeah, I think the independency plays a big role in that because it's like, hey, I have family relatives, or I was, or my mother was independent. So there's a sense of pride there that, hey, if you're not, doing what I want, how I want it, I can go back to what I'm used to. As opposed to other women, they've been raised and taught more so. Um, like y'all said, more like raised and taught, like, hey, you gotta work with this man, stay with him, even during the tough times, the really, really tough times. Like you mentioned
But
cheating,
men don't
et
have that
cetera.
speech too. Men don't get that speech too. She's going through it. Blah blah blah.
Well, men don't like they tend not to leave as much as you saw, like that, like
Yeah.
women like left like 3 times as much. They divorced 3 times as much as the men. Like it was
Mhm.
30% to 69%. That's a lot. That's 3 times.
Yeah.
So I mean, men need to work on it too, but I mean, 3 times it's like kind of like, all right, that's a big
Yeah.
gap.
Yeah. You got to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, that's a big gap. It's not like it's 50-50 or even 60-40. It's like Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, we need to figure out how to keep the women, or how the women can stay. We need to figure
Yeah.
that out.
So with that,
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's gonna have to be something that both parties are gonna have to work towards. But I also think that there has to be this mindset and understanding that, like, listen, there's value in this. There's value in being married. There's value in sticking it out with a partner. Um, and I think the bigger thing that we might need to discuss, what really could help with this, and again, we touched on, was better vetting processes, better ways of understanding who you're entering that marriage with, and trying, to take your time prior to doing that, to make sure that you guys are there together. As Nell said, it is cheaper to keep her, correct. That's once you already jumped into it, but sometimes you might want to slow down prior to jumping into that. I think another thing that also can deter that, or allow it to happen, or increase the chances, also is things that's like, pre-wedding type of situation, prenups, things of that nature, that will have people kind of looking like, hey, do I want to stay in this thing? Because you can have people stay for a certain time frame if they want to get vested a certain amount of money, or you can, what I'm saying, have them look to leave at any point in time if they feel like, hey, what does it bother me to just go ahead and leave? I think those are other
Mhm.
factors that I think kind of play into that marriage rates.
Mhm.
um, and
Yeah. So, just before we conclude, I wanted to just let everybody know that the statistics, the percentage of women that file for divorce across the U.S. is African Americans is at 33%, Hispanics is at 22%, and white women are at 19%, Asians are at 11. I think E or Malik, one of y'all read that already, but I wanted to just go ahead and put that out there so you understand why we're even having this. Why are Black women at the top of that? We're at the bottom of everything good and at the top of everything bad. We have to fix that narrative. We have to do better. Um, and
Right.
so did you guys have anything else gonna hop into the stuff, the Black business and stuff?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just my closing point, real quick, that I'm just afraid that like Black men are gonna give up on Black women and start dating out, and all the other groups aren't gonna go towards Black women either, right? So I just don't want Black women to just be out here sad and lonely and frustrated, and every time you deal with them, it's just gonna be even worse than what people stereotypically say Black women are. It might be even worse than that, and that's what I'm afraid of. Like I'm afraid, like the demeanor of Black women generally is going to get worse if Black men don't find a way, like men and women find a way to stay together. Like, it's just going to be constantly attitudes and frustrated because they're unhappy. So that's all I want to say.
Did you have anything that you wanted to add before I go ahead and jump in?
I'm with the motivational minute real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Well, while you do that, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go ahead and actually just get into the stuff. So the Black Book of the Month. Oh, well, let me back up. This is June. The month of June is Black Man Mental Health Month. So if you know a Black man, if you are a Black man, encourage the next Black man to go ahead and do something good for his mental health. Yeah, so there's that. So again, the name of the book is called Self-Care for Black Men, 100 Ways to Heal and Liberate. And it's by Joel Caraballo. Again, the name of the book is called Self-Care for Black Men, 100 Ways to Heal and Liberate. And that's by that's JOR hyphen EL Caraballo. And he's a therapist. Then we're going to get into the Black Business of the Month. It's called acoldwall.com. They're a clothing brand. They're actually a street clothing brand. And it was founded on bringing attention to racial awareness. So if you have a commitment, or you have a constitution of your own that taps into, bringing attention to racial disparities, you might want to go ahead and tap into them. Again, it's a-cold-wall.com. Oh, acoldwall.com. And so lastly, there is the Motivational Minute, and I'm going to leave that to Eric.
Yes, and so this week's Motivational Minute is a song by an artist. We're going to do something different this week, Katy Perry. And the song is called Unconditionally. Did I almost see what's really inside? All your insecurities, all the dirty laundry never made me blink one time. Unconditionally. But it was just a really good little song just to kind of show people that, love through the insecurities through, finding out some people's dirty laundry, and stay within it to never blink. I think he continues on to say, I will love you unconditionally. There is no fear now. Let it go and just be free. I will love you unconditionally. Come just as you are to me. Don't need apologies. Know that you are worthy. I'll take your bad days with your good. Walk through the storm. I would. I do it all because I love you. I love you unconditionally. So wanted to leave there with a positive note, something to encourage, those rates to continue to go down, and some of the things that I think that we definitely need within the Black love space. So that's our motivational minute for the day.
So we want to thank each and every one of you guys for tapping in with us. We love and love and care about y'all. We appreciate y'all, and we appreciate the fact that you appreciate us. So for everybody over here on YouTube, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. If there are any topics that you'd like to talk about, please go ahead and reach out to us, tap in with us, let us know the topic, and we'll talk about it. And we very well may go ahead and do that thing. And also, lastly, if you would like to be on the show, if you want to be in the show, please go ahead and hit any of us up, and we'll go ahead and bring you on, because we like to have company. We like to have these nice, deep discussions. So with that being said, that goes ahead. That concludes our Counterpoise podcast. I'm going to let the guys go ahead and go first. You guys want to drop your socials?
Yeah, you guys can catch me at that guy 2104 at Instagram, or you can catch me at CP_EV on Instagram as well.
Yeah, you can catch me at Malik M. Foster on all social media handles, and you can catch me on my Counterpoise at Malik_Counterpoise.
And you guys can catch me, Samantha Renee 77_ESQ, or Samantha Samantha Counterpoise ESQ, right over there, on IG. So Make sure y'all oh, one more place. I'm also on the Tagged app. If you want to find me there, it is called tagged.com, and you can find me. My name is Sam with 2 M's. I Yam with 2 M's and a Y. So it's Sam I Yam. Y'all make sure y'all tapping with me. So again, it's been a great discussion, fellas. We want to thank y'all again for tapping in with us, hanging out with us, and all that jazz. Y'all please make sure y'all stay safe. To be good to one another, and tap in with us again next week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more good stuff. All right, it's been real.
All right, guys. Much love. Peace.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Man, my contacts are tripping. If y'all don't